The message from Earth. For days, the Galactic Council waited. Their summons to Earth had been sent across the void. They expected silence again, or worse, they expected the thunder of engines and the fire of warships breaking orbit. But instead, something unexpected happened. One morning, across every star system tied to the Council, every channel, every screen, every transmission band went dark. Then a single voice broke the silence. It was human. The voice was deep, calm, and clear. It carried no fear, no arrogance, and no hesitation. "This is Earth," it said. The words struck the galaxy like lightning. For centuries, humanity had spoken only through traitors, whispers, and rare encounters. But never like this. Never so direct. Now the entire galaxy listened. "We did not sit in your halls," the voice continued, "because survival demanded more than talk. While you debated, we prepared. While you argued, we worked. While you fought each other for pride, we built." Images appeared with the words. Shipyards stretching across Earth's orbit. Thousands of vessels lined in perfect formation, engines glowing with silent fire. Soldiers training in cities that looked more like fortresses. Factories that burned day and night, pouring steel into the sky. The galaxy watched in awe and in fear. "You wanted us in your council. But you did not ask why we never came," the voice said. "You believed it was arrogance. You believed it was weakness. You were wrong. We stayed silent because the galaxy is not safe. A shadow older than your council is moving again. We saw the signs. We heard the echoes in the void. And we chose to prepare." In the council chamber, no one moved. The delegates stared at the massive projection above them. The insectoid warlord clicked his claws nervously. "They are lying. It must be a trick." But his words shook as if even he didn't believe them. The human voice did not stop. "You fought each other for position. You wasted centuries on words. We had no time for that. We know what comes. And we will face it, whether you stand with us or against us." The transmission ended with no further explanation. The screens went black. The silence that followed was even heavier than the voice itself. In the chamber, chaos erupted again. "They threaten us," screamed the scaled general. "They say they will face us if we stand against them." "They mean war." "No," argued a feathered diplomat. "They spoke of a shadow. Something older." "What if they speak truth?" Others shouted for proof. Some demanded to attack at once. Some begged for patience, but deep down every council member felt the same thing, a chill. Humans had spoken, and their words carried the weight of certainty. Unlike the council's endless debates, humanity's message was simple, sharp, and final. For the first time, the galaxy realized Earth's silence had been a choice, and choices like that came only from strength. One elder, her skin like stone, spoke softly to those around her. "If what they say is true, then we are all children in the dark, and only they have lit a fire." The insectoid swarm hissed back. "Or they are liars hiding a blade behind their backs." The arguments went on, but the image of Earth's fleet burned in every mind. Those warships were not made for show. They were not meant to impress. They were weapons forged for war on a scale few could imagine, and yet, they circled Earth, not the stars. They were not spreading out to conquer. They were watching, waiting, guarding. In the farthest corners of the galaxy, ordinary people heard the human message too. Merchants on trade routes whispered of Earth's courage. Soldiers in distant garrisons spoke of the human fleet with awe. Some races, long crushed by powerful empires, began to hope. Others, proud and strong, began to fear their power would fade. The galaxy was changing. Not slowly, not in centuries, but in days. The council gathered again in secret, desperate to decide what to do. Should they ally with Earth? Should they crush them before they grew stronger? Should they investigate this shadow humanity had spoken of? But none of their choices felt safe anymore. Because the truth was clear, humanity had spoken once. And in just a few sentences, they had shaken the galaxy more than centuries of council law. For now, Earth stayed quiet again. Their fleets did not move. Their weapons did not fire. But every empire knew the silence was different this time. It was not weakness. It was not absence. It was a warning. The empty seat in the council chamber no longer looked small. It looked like the center of everything. And every empire had to ask themselves the same question. Would they fight beside Earth when the shadow came? Or would they be crushed, either by the shadow or by Earth's unstoppable armada? The galaxy had heard Earth's voice at last, and nothing would ever be the same. The first encounter, the Galactic Council had heard Earth's first message, but words were not enough. They needed to see the humans with their own eyes. After weeks of fear and endless arguments, they chose to send an envoy to Earth. It would not be a single ambassador, but a team, one from each of the major empires. They wanted to test humanity's truth, to judge them face to face. A great ship, the Starlight Accord, was prepared for the journey. Its hull gleamed silver, covered in banners of the Council. Inside, the envoy sat in uneasy silence. A feathered diplomat clicked his beak nervously. A scaled general sharpened his claws against the seat. An insectoid ambassador twitched its wings, hissing under its breath. None of them trusted each other, and none trusted the humans. When the ship entered Sol, the solar system, the envoys saw something that froze them in awe. Human warships surrounded the system like a wall of steel. Their designs were strange, angular, sharp, built for function, not beauty. Their engines glowed with cold light, and their weapons pointed outward, not inward. The fleet did not fire, did not move aggressively, but their silent presence was more terrifying than 1,000 threats. The Starlight Accord was guided by escorts through the massive formation. The envoys felt as if they were insects crawling under the gaze of giants. Every warship they passed was larger than anything their empires had built. Some carried scars of testing, proof that humans had fought battles even the Council did not know about. Finally, the ship entered Earth's orbit. What they saw there shocked them even more. Vast shipyards ringed the planet, glowing with construction lights. Hundreds of new vessels were being built at once, rising from skeletons of steel into weapons of war. Massive orbital stations spun slowly, covered with cannons, hangars, and shield arrays. Below, Earth itself glowed with cities, bright, alive, restless. It was not a world of weakness. It was a fortress. The envoys were silent until the insectoid ambassador whispered, This is impossible." The Starlight Accord was given landing permission. It descended through the atmosphere, passing through skies filled with smaller human ships, drones, and defense platforms. On the ground, the envoys saw training fields where soldiers in black armor marched in perfect formation. They saw factories burning with fire as weapons were forged. They saw ordinary humans walking the streets, their eyes sharp, their steps steady. This was not the image of a species unprepared. This was a people ready for war. At last, the envoys were led into a grand hall in New Geneva, Earth's capital. The hall was not covered in jewels or gold. It was made of steel and glass, simple but strong. At the far end, a human delegation waited. The leader was not a king nor a general dressed in shining metals. It was a woman in a plain black uniform, her face calm, her eyes sharp as blades. She rose when the envoys entered and spoke without ceremony. "Welcome to Earth." The envoys waited for arrogance, for boasting, for threats, but her voice was steady, almost cold. "You came to demand answers," she said. "We will give you one." The scaled general growled. "Why did you hide your fleet? Why did you build in silence while the galaxy trusted you?" The human leader's gaze did not waver, because trust does not stop death. Debate does not stop extinction. We built in silence because no one else was preparing. We built because something is coming. The feathered envoy clicked his beak. "What shadow do you speak of?" "You send warnings, but no proof." The human leader motioned with her hand. A massive hologram filled the hall. It showed dark shapes beyond known space. Ships, but not like any the Council had seen. Twisted, alive, their forms wrong, as if they were grown, not built. Their size dwarfed even human dreadnoughts. Their numbers were endless. "They destroyed civilizations long before your council was born," the human said. "We found their ruins, their signals, their silence. They are returning, and if we had wasted time sitting in your chamber, we would be dead already." The envoys stared at the nightmare ships, their alien eyes wide with fear. The insectoid ambassador hissed, "You expect us to believe this?" The human did not flinch. "We expect nothing. Believe us or don't, we will face them either way." Silence fell again. The words were heavy, too heavy to dismiss. For the first time, the Council envoys realized the truth. Humanity was not arrogant. They were not hiding to deceive. They had hidden because they were the only ones who had seen the storm approaching. And they had chosen to prepare alone. The feathered diplomat spoke softly, almost with respect. "You built not for conquest. You built to survive." The human leader nodded once. "And now survival may belong to all of us. But only if you are ready. The meeting ended with no handshakes, no promises. The envoys returned to their ship shaken, their minds filled with images of steel fleets and dark shadows. For the first time in ages, the proud council felt small. The empty seat, the Galactic Council chamber, was the most important place in the known universe. It was a hall built of crystal and metal, floating above a star. Inside, representatives from every great empire gathered. They wore robes of power, armor of tradition, or even scales that glowed with natural light. Voices clashed every day, talk of trade, war, and peace. But no matter how heated the meetings became, one thing never changed. One seat remained empty. The chair carved with the mark of Earth, blue and white like a small sphere, was always unoccupied. At first, no one cared. Humans were new to the galactic stage, only discovered by the Council less than 2 centuries ago. A small world, a species climbing fast but still fragile compared to star nations that had ruled for millennia. The Council thought Earth's silence meant humility, but decades passed. Meeting after meeting, vote after vote. The seat stayed empty. Humans never sent anyone, not a diplomat, not a soldier, not even a messenger drone. The galaxy began to whisper. Are they too weak to face us? One lizard-like warlord growled. Or too proud to sit with their betters? Hissed another voice. Some laughed. Some grew uneasy. But the humans did not reply. Then, one night, everything changed. It started with a transmission. Not from Earth, from the edges of space. Remote stations and traders sent reports to the Council. At first, no one believed them. The stories sounded like madness. They spoke of massive ships drifting silently across the void. Not one or two. Not a fleet of dozens. Thousands. When the Council demanded proof, the evidence came in waves. Images, sensor readings, whole records from observatories. And there it was, clear as day. Earth's orbit was no longer quiet. It was crowded. Warships, human warships, numbering in the thousands, circled the planet like a steel storm. The galaxy froze. No one had ever seen Earth's navy before. No one knew they had one at all. How could a species that skipped every meeting build an armada larger than most empires? How could they do it in secret? In the council hall, voices rose in panic. "This is impossible!" shouted a feather-winged elder. "They are hiding weapons. They are planning war," accused a scaled general, but others were silent, staring at the images with wide eyes, because deep inside they understood. This wasn't the fleet of a species seeking conquest. This was the fleet of a species preparing for something bigger. Still, fear grew like fire. Some council members demanded Earth explain itself. Others wanted to send fleets at once to surround the planet before humans could strike. But no one truly understood what they were dealing with. The empty seat was no longer a sign of weakness. It had become a mystery, a warning. Far across the stars on Earth, the people moved with calm silence. Cities glowed, shipyards burned with light, and massive engines hummed in orbit. To the humans, this moment was not sudden. It was the result of years of sacrifice, planning, and survival. They had worked while the galaxy argued. They had built while the council debated. And now the curtain was pulled back. For the first time in history, the galaxy looked at Earth not as a newcomer, but as a power. The empty seat in the council chamber stood out brighter than ever before. Not because it was ignored, but because it carried the weight of a question no one could answer. Why had Earth stayed silent? And what would come next now that the silence was broken? The council chamber, once full of noise and arrogance, fell quiet as the realization spread. The humans had never needed their meetings. They had never needed their debates. They had chosen a different path, a colder path, one hidden from the eyes of the galaxy. And the proof was now circling Earth in endless orbit. Thousands of warships. Silent, waiting. The whispers turned into fear. What do they want? Why now? Have we pushed them too far? No answer came. Not yet, but one thing was certain. The empty seat was no longer empty in meaning. It was filled with power, mystery, and a threat that the galaxy could not ignore. And somewhere, beyond the walls of the council chamber, the first human message was preparing to be sent. The shocked council. The next meeting of the Galactic Council began with tension so heavy it could almost be touched. The great chamber floating above a burning star had never been this restless. Normally, the council meetings were filled with endless speeches, bargains, and pride. But this time, every eye stared at the same thing. A projection in the center of the hall. The hologram showed Earth, a small blue planet surrounded by thousands of ships. Human warships, all silent, all waiting. The silence in the chamber broke when an insectoid delegate struck the floor with its claws. "This is proof," it hissed. The humans deceived us. They hid their strength. What species does this unless they plan to strike? A wave of voices followed. "They mean war," roared a scaled general. "We must send fleets before they grow stronger," argued another. Others shouted for calm, their words drowned out by panic, but not everyone spoke. A few ancient races, the ones who had seen empires rise and fall, leaned back in silence. Their eyes narrowed, not in anger but in thought. They had lived long enough to know that appearances could hide deeper truths. "Humans never spoke in this chamber," one elder whispered, her voice low yet sharp. "While we argued, they built. What do they know that we do not?" Her words cut through the noise like a blade. For a moment the chamber quieted again. The counselors stared at the projection, and unease spread through them like a slow poison. The galaxy had seen powerful fleets before, but they had grown in public, built over centuries, paraded with pride. Humanity's armada had appeared suddenly, like a shadow lifting to reveal hidden teeth. No empire had ever done this. No empire could. A feathered envoy from the Dawn clans lifted his wings and demanded an explanation. "Summon them. Call Earth to answer. If they wish to be silent, then we shall not allow it. They must face us now." A vote was taken. For the first time in decades, the Council was united. Every species agreed Earth would be summoned. A message was sent across the void, carried by light faster than thought. But before the message even left the chamber, fear began to break unity apart. One empire wanted to prepare its fleets, just in case. Another demanded the Council station ships around Sol to watch humans closely. The insectoid swarm worlds hissed that humans were liars and predators. The scaled generals shouted that the time to strike was now, before Earth's fleet grew larger. Within hours, alliances began to crack. Trust shattered. Every empire looked at the others with suspicion. If Earth could build fleets in silence, who else might be hiding? The chamber turned into a storm of arguments. Voices screamed across the crystal walls. Some feared humans. Some envied them. Some even admired them. Amid the chaos, one alien stood silent, a diplomat from a minor race with no fleet, no weapons. His eyes never left the projection of Earth. He saw something the others missed. The human ships did not move like a fleet preparing for conquest. They did not face outward, pointing their weapons at the stars. Instead, they circled Earth closely, almost protectively, as if guarding it. He whispered to himself, unheard, "They are not preparing to attack us. They are preparing for something else." But his voice was too small to rise above the storm. The arguments grew worse. Threats were shouted across the chamber. Ancient enemies blamed each other. The insectoid swarm accused the feathered clans of secretly aiding Earth. The scaled generals swore they would strike first. Even without the Council's approval, fear had turned the proud Council into a nest of paranoia. Finally, the Prime Speaker, the one voice meant to hold order, struck the floor with a staff. Sparks lit the air. "Enough!" the Speaker thundered. "Earth has hidden for too long. They will speak. We will demand answers. Until then, no fleets move, no weapons rise. To strike without truth is to invite chaos." Reluctantly, the chamber calmed, but the fear did not vanish. It grew deeper, like water flooding cracks. For the first time, the Council felt powerless. They had ruled the galaxy for millennia, judging every new species, guiding every young world. But humanity had not asked for guidance. Humanity had not begged for a place. Humanity had taken its own path, and now the galaxy had to face the truth. The empty seat no longer looked like a weakness. It looked like a shadow, and in that shadow was a power the galaxy did not understand. When the meeting ended, the delegates returned to their empires, but none of them slept easily. Some planned to build more ships. Others whispered about striking Earth in secret. A few even prayed to their gods, fearing that something far older than humanity might be involved. And somewhere far away on Earth, the humans prepared to send their first message to the stars. The galaxy was waiting. The Council was afraid, and the silence of humanity was about to break. And humanity's empty seat no longer felt empty at all. Fear and division. When the envoys returned from Earth, the council chamber once again filled with voices. But this time the debates were more poisonous than ever before. The images of human shipyards, the endless fleets, the hologram of the dark enemy, they had all burned into the minds of the delegates. And each species saw something different. Some saw danger, others saw hope, but most saw fear. The insectoid ambassador slammed its claws against the crystal floor. "They lie," it shrieked. "They show us monsters to excuse their armies. They prepare to conquer, not to save." The scaled general hissed in agreement, his tail lashing with anger. "If we allow them to grow stronger, they will enslave us all. I say we strike before their fleet grows beyond control." But others shouted back. A feathered envoy raised his wings. "No, I saw their ships." They were not pointed outward in conquest. They guarded Earth. They are preparing for something real. If we destroy them, we destroy our only shield. Voices crashed like thunder across the chamber. Empires accused one another of plotting with humans in secret. Old enemies used the chance to throw blame. Some spoke of alliances with Earth. Others demanded war. The Council, built to unite the galaxy, was crumbling from within. The Prime Speaker tried to restore order, but even his staff of command could not silence the storm. Words had turned into threats. Threats into promises. The Great Hall echoed with hatred and fear. Behind closed doors, empires began to plot. The insectoid swarm sent secret signals to its fleets, ordering them to prepare for war near human space. The scaled warlords gathered their dreadnoughts, sharpening their claws for what they called the cleansing strike. Meanwhile, the feathered clans began secret talks with smaller races, whispering that humanity might be the galaxy's only chance of survival. Fear had divided the galaxy into two camps, those who wanted to fight humanity and those who wanted to stand behind them. But no one truly trusted the other side. In hidden chambers, spies carried messages. Assassins were hired. Fleets moved in silence across the void. For centuries the Council had argued and debated, but now it teetered on the edge of collapse. And at the heart of it all was Earth, the silent world that had become louder than any empire. The ordinary people of the galaxy felt the change too. On distant colonies, whispers spread. "The humans are stronger than the Council. The humans will protect us. The humans will destroy us." Markets crashed as fear grew. Soldiers in remote outposts argued among themselves. Who was the real enemy, the shadow or the humans? In the council chamber, the arguments reached a boiling point. The insectoid ambassador slammed its claws again. "You fools believe their lies. They are predators. They speak of shadows, so you will kneel before them. Soon you will not be envoys, you will be slaves." The feathered envoy spread his wings in fury. "Better to kneel to humans than to be devoured by monsters we cannot fight alone." The chamber erupted. Delegates leapt from their seats, shouting, hissing, roaring. Guards rushed in to hold back the chaos. The Prime Speaker struck the floor again and again, but the chamber ignored him. At last, the stone-skinned elder who had remained silent for hours finally spoke. Her voice was deep, slow, and filled with age. "You argue like children while the storm grows closer. Can you not see? If the humans are liars, then yes, they will bring war. But if they are truth speakers, then the galaxy is already in danger greater than you imagine. Either way, our division will destroy us before they or the shadow even need to try." Her words stilled the chamber, but only for a moment. Fear was too deep. The council ended that day in fragments. No clear vote was made. No decision reached. Each empire returned to its homeworld with only one thought: prepare. Some prepared to ally with Earth. Some prepared to destroy it. And some, trapped in doubt, simply prepared to survive. Far away on Earth, the humans watched through hidden channels. They saw the division. They saw the fear, and their leaders said nothing. But in the great halls of New Geneva, human commanders met in secret. Maps of the galaxy lit the walls. Red lights marked council fleets now moving near Sol. Blue lights marked races who quietly reached out, asking for protection. The humans spoke little, but their decision was already made. "We do not seek to rule them," one general said. "But if they come with war, they will break against us. And if they come with fear?" Another asked. The leader, the woman who had spoken to the envoys, stood silent for a long time before answering. "Then we wait. Because when the shadow arrives, even our enemies will beg for our help." The galaxy spun in chaos, divided, broken by fear. But humanity did not bend. Their fleets circled Earth like silent guardians, Their factories poured steel into the skies, and their people prepared for the storm. The Council's empty seat had become a wound in the galaxy, a wound filled with suspicion, anger, and uncertainty. And as the stars grew colder, every empire knew the same truth. The next move would decide everything. The hidden reason the galaxy was breaking apart, the Council had lost its unity. Fleets moved in secret, diplomats whispered lies, and old enemies sharpened their blades. Every empire believed it knew the truth about Earth, yet none of them really understood. The humans had given one warning about a shadow, but they had not revealed everything. Not yet. On Earth, deep beneath the mountains of old continents, there were vaults, sealed chambers where humanity kept its darkest discoveries. Inside, vast archives glowed with data pulled from wrecks, ruins, and dead systems far beyond the Council's borders. Soldiers guarded them. Scientists worked day and night, piecing together what they had found, and what they found was terrifying. Long before the Council was born, civilizations had risen in the galaxy, empires larger and older than anything that existed today. But one by one they vanished. Not through war with each other, not through time, but through something else. The records showed burned worlds, shattered fleets, entire species erased. At first, humanity thought these were natural disasters, supernovas, black holes. But then they found patterns. The destruction was not random. It was directed. It was hunting. The humans had given this enemy a name: the Devourers. They were not like any race known to the Council. Their ships were not built. They were grown, vast living machines of hunger and destruction. They did not conquer. They consumed. They stripped planets, drained stars, and left only silence. Earth had found the first hints of them in faint signals near the edges of the galaxy. At first it was just static, but hidden in the static were pulses, patterns of intelligence, echoes of something moving in the dark. As years passed, the signals grew clearer, and then came the ruins, found by human explorers who had gone farther than any Council race dared. That was when humanity understood. The Devourers were returning. This was the true reason Earth had skipped every Council meeting. Words would not stop what was coming. Arguments would not build fleets. Only preparation could. And so, while the galaxy laughed at their absence, humanity built. They dug into their soil, tore metal from their earth, and filled their skies with steel. They created weapons never seen before, engines stronger than anything the Council imagined, and warships in numbers no one thought possible. They sacrificed comfort. They sacrificed wealth. They sacrificed time. But they did not sacrifice survival. Back in the Council chamber, the truth was still unknown. Only a handful of envoys had seen the holograms of the Devourers. Many dismissed it as human lies. But small whispers began to spread. Whispers carried by spies, by traitors, by frightened envoys who had stood in Earth's halls. The humans are not building to attack us. They are building because something is coming. Those whispers reached the ears of minor races, the ones always ignored in Council debates. Worlds without great fleets, colonies left vulnerable, while empires argued over taxes and pride. For them, Earth's warning was not a threat, it was hope. If the shadow is real, they said, then maybe humanity will stand for us when our so-called protectors abandon us. But for the great empires, the truth was poison. If humans were right, then the Council had failed. For centuries, they had ruled the galaxy, claiming to keep order. Yet they had missed the greatest danger of all. Pride would not allow them to admit that a young species had seen what they had not. And so division deepened. Some empires began sending secret envoys to Earth, offering small alliances, trade of resources, even soldiers. Others doubled their calls for war, saying humanity's lies must be crushed before fear spread further. But Earth remained silent. They did not send more messages. They did not threaten or boast. They simply built. Every day, more ships rolled from their shipyards. Every day, more soldiers trained. Every day, their fleets grew stronger. In private, Earth's leaders spoke the truth only to themselves. They are not ready to hear it, the woman in black uniform said, staring at the stars from her war room. If we tell them everything, they will turn their fear against us. They must see the Devourers themselves before they believe. Her generals nodded grimly. And when they come? She answered with cold certainty. We will be ready, even if we stand alone. In the galaxy's farthest corners, something stirred. Silent systems where stars had gone dark showed faint signals. Patrols sent to the edge of known space failed to return. Traders whispered of ships, massive, twisted, and alive, seen drifting near uncharted worlds. The Council dismissed them as lies, but Earth knew better. The shadow was no longer coming. It was already here, the dawn of fire. The galaxy had lived in arguments and fear for months. The Council no longer spoke with one voice. Empires prepared for war with humans while others whispered of alliances. Ordinary people lived in dread, not knowing who to trust. And then the first scream came. A mining colony on the edge of the Orion Arm sent out a distress signal. It was weak, broken, filled with static, but before it died, one image escaped across the void. A black sky filled with ships, twisted and alive, their hulls glowing with sick light. The colony burned in seconds. Millions vanished. The devourers had arrived. At first, the Council refused to believe. They claimed it was a trick, human lies made to stir panic. But when 3 more colonies fell in less than a week, denial shattered. Fleets were sent to investigate. None returned. The galaxy panicked. Worlds screamed for protection. Armies scrambled into space. But the devourers moved faster than fear. They struck without warning, devouring stars, silencing planets, leaving nothing but dead systems behind. The Council called an emergency session. For the first time in centuries, every seat was filled except one. The seat marked with Earth's blue and white sphere was still empty. But in the chamber, no one laughed at it anymore. No one called it arrogance or weakness. Now that seat was a wound of guilt, because the humans had warned them, and the Council had ignored it. As the chamber drowned in chaos, a new signal arrived. It was human. The same calm voice that had spoken before now echoed through the hall. The shadow is here. You argued while it grew. You doubted while it moved. But now you cannot deny it. The projection above them shifted, showing the devourers tearing through systems, then showing Earth. Its fleets filled the skies, its shipyards blazing with fire. We will not beg you to join us, the human voice said. We will not force you, but we will fight. And when the shadow comes for your worlds, remember this. Earth stood ready. The message ended. Silence fell. And in that silence, every council member knew the truth. Humanity was no longer just another race in the galaxy. They were the only wall between survival and extinction. Far away above Earth, the fleets began to move. Thousands of ships broke orbit in perfect formation. Dreadnoughts as large as cities, carriers filled with endless fighters. Cruisers, destroyers, frigates, all engines burning, all weapons armed. It was not a parade. It was not a show of strength. It was the beginning of war. In New Geneva, the woman in black uniform stood before her commanders. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with fire. The galaxy is not united, she said, but it doesn't matter. We are ready. Today, humanity enters history, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as defenders. The generals saluted. Orders raced through the fleets. Engines flared like suns. The armada stretched its wings and leapt into the void. News spread across the stars. Entire worlds gathered around screens watching the humans rise. For some it was hope, for others it was fear, but none could deny the sight. An armada greater than anything the galaxy had seen in living memory. In the council chamber, the stone-skinned elder whispered, "The dawn of fire has come. Whether they save us or rule us, nothing will be the same." The insectoid warlord hissed in fury, but even his voice was weak. The scaled generals, once full of pride, said nothing. The feathered clans bowed their heads. The council had lost control, because the galaxy no longer looked to them. It looked to Earth, and beyond the stars, in the darkness where the devourers swarmed, a war unlike any before was about to begin. The first human fleets reached the edge of the Orion Arm. Their ships spread out, weapons primed, and there, waiting in the blackness, the devourers appeared. Twisted ships the size of moons, their bodies alive, their engines pulsing like beating hearts. They came not with demands, not with words, only with hunger. The void lit up. Human warships opened fire. Beams of light cut through the dark. Missiles streaked across space, and the silence of centuries was broken by thunder. The devourers answered with storms of energy, tearing ships apart. Steel and flesh clashed in the cold abyss. It was the beginning of the greatest war the galaxy had ever known. On distant worlds, children watched the sky and whispered, "The humans are fighting for us." On Earth, people stood in silence. knowing their sons and daughters were now the first line against extinction. And in the council chamber, the empty seat glowed beneath the great lights. It was still unoccupied, but it was no longer empty. It was filled with power, with defiance, with the spirit of a species that had chosen to rise when others only argued. The dawn of fire had come, and humanity was no longer silent.